Commander Rhiannon Sullivan stood at the viewport of the RSV Aegis, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the distant stars fade into streaks of light. The last remaining dreadnought of humanity's once proud fleet cut through space like a blade through silk, carrying with it the desperate hopes of Earth's surviving billions. "Commander," First Officer Gene Takashi's voice broke through the silence, "long-range sensors are picking up cracks in signatures. They're exactly where intelligence said they'd be." Sullivan turned, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic display that materialized before her. The Kraxan invasion fleet spread across the sector like a virus, 15 capital ships, each one nearly twice the size of the Aegis, surrounded by countless smaller vessels that swarmed like angry wasps. "Status of the prototype?" Sullivan asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Dr. Volkov reports the quantum matrix is stable," Gene replied, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "But we've never tested it against anything larger than a corvette. The power requirements alone could tear us apart." Sullivan allowed herself a grim smile. "They expect us to run, to hide like we've done for the past 3 years. They think they've broken us." She walked to the central command station, where the ship's AI, Phoenix, projected a detailed battle analysis. "They're wrong." The Kraxan had appeared 5 years ago, emerging from the depths of unexplored space with technology that made humanity's greatest achievements look like children's toys. They didn't negotiate. They didn't make demands. They simply began systematically destroying human colonies, their crystalline ships cutting through defensive fleets like paper. "All hands," Sullivan's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, "this is the commander. For 3 years, we've watched our worlds burn. We've lost friends, family, entire colonies to an enemy that sees us as nothing more than vermin to be exterminated. Today, that changes." Below decks, Chief Engineer Tariq Hassan worked feverishly with his team, routing power through experimental circuits that hummed with barely contained energy. The prototype weapon, officially designated Project Prometheus, was their last hope, built from recovered alien technology and human ingenuity. "Kraxan fleet is altering course," Gene reported, his usual calm demeanor showing cracks of tension. "They've spotted us. Reading energy buildups consistent with their main weapons." Sullivan nodded, years of combat experience guiding her next words. "Launch the quantum buoys. Let's give them something to think about." The Aegis shuddered as specialized pods ejected from its hull, spreading out in a precise pattern. Each contained a piece of the puzzle that Dr. Volkov had spent years perfecting, a way to turn the Kraxan's own technological superiority against them. "Enemy flagship is broadcasting," the communications officer, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, announced. "They're laughing at us." A harsh, artificial voice filled the bridge. "Your persistence amuses us, humans. You send a single ship against our might. Your species truly deserves extinction." Sullivan didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, she watched the tactical display as the Kraxan fleet moved to surround them, their crystalline hulls glowing with building energy. They were following the exact pattern that intelligence had predicted, the same arrogant superiority that had cost humanity so many lives. "Prometheus status?" Sullivan demanded. "Matrix synchronized," Hassan's voice crackled through the comm, "but Commander, the simulations show a 30% chance the feedback could overload our core." "Better than the 100% chance of death if we do nothing," Sullivan replied. "All hands, brace for combat maneuvers. Phoenix, initiate Prometheus sequence." The AI's serene voice responded, "Sequence initiated. Quantum buoys aligned. Warning, detecting unprecedented energy readings from Kraxan vessels." The enemy fleet opened fire, lances of devastating energy cutting through space toward the Aegis. But Sullivan had already set her trap. "Now, Phoenix. Execute." The quantum buoys activated simultaneously, creating a complex web of energy that intersected with the Kraxan's weapon fire. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to twist. The Kraxen's energy weapons curved backward, caught in the quantum web's influence. Their crystalline hulls, designed to channel and amplify energy, became their undoing. The first ship shattered, its own power turned inward by the quantum interference. Then another. And another. By all the stars, Jean whispered, watching the display in awe. The enemy flagship's transmission cut through again, but this time the artificial voice held something new: fear. What have you done? This is impossible. Sullivan leaned forward, her voice hard as steel. You thought you knew everything about us. You thought we were primitive, weak, worthy only of extinction. But you forgot something crucial about humanity: we learn. We adapt. And we never, ever give up. The Aegis shuddered as power surged through its systems, the quantum matrix straining to maintain the field. Warning alerts blared across every station, but Sullivan held firm. They had one chance to prove that humanity wasn't finished, that they could stand against the impossible and win. Multiple Kraxen vessels attempting emergency jumps, Jean reported, his voice rising with excitement. Their fleet formation is breaking down. Sullivan watched as the mighty Kraxen fleet, terror of human space, fell into chaos. The quantum web had turned their greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness, and for the first time since they appeared, the invincible enemy showed vulnerability. Send the message to Earth, Sullivan ordered. Tell them humanity just got its second chance. As the last Kraxen ships fled or fell to their own reflected power, the crew of the Aegis stood in stunned silence. They had done more than win a battle, they had changed the course of the war. And in the void of space, surrounded by the crystalline debris of their enemies, hope bloomed again for the human race. The victory at the Battle of Proxima Gate, as it would come to be known, had bought humanity precious time. But aboard the RSV Aegis, Dr. Nikolai Volkov knew better than to celebrate. The quantum matrix that had turned the tide against the Kraxen fleet had nearly torn their ship apart, and the aging scientist's hands trembled as he reviewed the damage reports. The containment field almost failed, he muttered, his Russian accent thickened by exhaustion. We cannot risk another full-scale deployment without understanding the source code. The ship's laboratory, normally pristine and organized, looked like a war zone. Holographic displays flickered with damaged data streams, and burnt-out quantum processors lined the walls like fallen soldiers. In the center of the chaos, a single terminal remained active, displaying lines of code that predated the Kraxen invasion. Lieutenant Zara Bennett, the ship's quantum systems specialist, leaned over Volkov's shoulder. These algorithms, she said, her dark fingers tracing patterns in the holographic display, they're not just complex. They're elegant. Like they were written by someone who knew exactly what the Kraxens would bring to bear against us. Impossible, Volkov replied, but his voice held a note of uncertainty. The original Project Prometheus data was recovered from ruins on Mars. Pre-colonial ruins. Before we even knew other intelligent life existed. The laboratory doors hissed open, admitting Commander Sullivan. The victory had left its mark on her too, a fresh bandage covered a burn on her neck, and her uniform showed scorch marks from overloaded systems. Doctor, she said, I need answers. Earth Command is demanding we replicate the weapon for the rest of the fleet, but our engineers say the quantum matrix is deteriorating faster than predicted. Volkov gestured to the central display. Commander, what we achieved was remarkable, but also incredibly dangerous. The code we used. I'm beginning to believe it wasn't meant for our current level of technology. It's like giving gunpowder to cave dwellers. We don't have time for philosophical debates, Sullivan started, but a sudden alert from Phoenix cut her off. Warning, the AI announced. Detecting quantum resonance patterns similar to pre-battle readings. Source, the Mars Artifact Data Core. The laboratory's main screen came alive with streaming data. Symbols and equations that had remained dormant for decades began shifting, responding to their recent use of the quantum matrix. Zara's eyes widened as she recognized patterns emerging from the chaos. It's not just code, she breathed. It's a message. The artifacts, the quantum matrices, they're all part of something bigger. Something left behind for us to find. Volkov's hands flew across the controls, his fatigue forgotten. The original algorithms, they're transforming. Adapting. Like they were waiting for us to reach this exact moment in time. Doctor, Sullivan's voice carried a warning edge, what exactly are you saying? Before he could answer, the ship's tactical alert blared. Jin's voice came through the comm, Commander to the bridge. Multiple cracks and signatures detected, but, something's wrong. They're not moving like before. Sullivan looked at the newly transformed data streams, then back to her science team. Whatever this is, whatever we've awakened, we need answers fast. The Kraxen won't stay beaten for long. There's more, Zara said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. The code, it's showing us blueprints. Modifications to the quantum matrix that would stabilize it, make it more powerful. But these designs, they'd require us to fundamentally alter the Aegis itself. Volkov studied the evolving patterns with growing awe. Someone left this for us. Some ancient civilization that faced the Kraxen before, or knew they would come. They encoded their knowledge in a way that would only reveal itself when we proved ourselves ready. How long to implement these modifications? Sullivan demanded. Hours, maybe days, Zara replied. But Commander, these changes would be permanent. If we're wrong about this, we could destroy the last hope humanity has. The tactical alert continued to sound, and through the laboratory viewport, they could see the distant flashes of approaching Kraxen ships. But these vessels moved erratically, their crystalline hulls showing signs of damage that went beyond physical wounds. They're afraid now, Sullivan said softly. For the first time, they don't know what we're capable of. Dr. Volkov, Lieutenant Bennett, you have 6 hours. Whatever secrets these artifacts hold, whatever message was left for us, we need it now. As the commander strode out, Volkov and Zara turned back to their work. The ancient code continued to unfold before them, revealing layers of complexity that boggled the mind. Humanity had discovered its inheritance, knowledge left behind by those who had come before, waiting for the moment when it would be most desperately needed. Look at this, Zara pointed to a recurring symbol in the code. It keeps appearing alongside the quantum matrices. Almost like a signature, Volkov finished. Whoever left this for us, they wanted us to know we weren't alone in the fight. That others had stood against the darkness before. Above them, the Aegis's systems hummed with potential, ready to be transformed by knowledge from the distant past. And in the void of space, the Kraxen fleet approached, their previous confidence shattered, about to face an enemy that was finally beginning to understand its true potential. Sweat beaded on Lieutenant Bennett's forehead as she worked to integrate the ancient code into the Aegis's systems. The quantum processors hummed with barely contained power, their crystalline matrices glowing with an otherworldly light that pulsed in time with the ship's heartbeat. Final synchronization reaching critical threshold, Phoenix announced, its usual calm voice carrying undertones of concern. Detecting unusual quantum resonance patterns throughout all major systems. Commander Sullivan stood at her bridge station, watching as the tactical display showed the approaching Kraxen fleet. Their formation was different now, tighter, more defensive. The enemy's previous arrogance had been replaced by caution, perhaps even fear. Time to intercept, she asked, eyes fixed on the hostile signatures. Jean consulted his readings. 20 minutes, Commander. They're moving slower than usual, running active scans. Whatever we did to them last time, they're taking no chances. In the engineering bay, Chief Hassan worked frantically with his team to reinforce the power conduits. The new configurations demanded by the ancient code pushed the ship's systems far beyond their designed limitations. Engineering to bridge, he called out, these power levels are unprecedented. The core is holding, but barely. Dr. Volkov's voice cut through the tension. Commander, we're seeing something remarkable. The code isn't just integrating, it's evolving. Adapting to our systems in ways I never thought possible. Sullivan's response was cut short as a massive energy surge rippled through the ship. Every display flickered, and for a moment, the lighting shifted to a deep, pulsing purple. When it stabilized, new information flooded the tactical screens. "My God," Gene whispered, staring at his console. "These readings, we're seeing through their cloaking fields. Every hidden ship, every stealth drone, they're all visible." Lieutenant Tanaka's hands flew across her communications panel. "Commander, we're picking up transmissions from the Kraxan fleet. They're panicking." The enemy vessels began to break formation, their previously coordinated movements becoming erratic. Through the translated comm chatter, fragments of their confusion became clear: the humans, they possess the architect's sight, retreat, contact the Dominion. "What's an architect?" Sullivan demanded, but before anyone could respond, Zara's voice cut through with urgency. "Commander, the code is showing us something else. The quantum matrix, it wasn't just a weapon. It's a key. A key to something the Kraxan have been trying to destroy for millennia." The main viewport shifted, overlaying the space before them with ghostly images. Ancient battle lines appeared and faded, conflicts fought long before humanity had mastered fire. And through it all, a pattern emerged, showing civilizations rising and falling as they faced the crystalline terror of the Kraxan. "They're not invaders," Volkov realized, his voice thick with understanding. "They're custodians. Preventing younger races from accessing something. Something left behind by these architects." Sullivan watched as the nearest Kraxan vessel attempted to charge its main weapons. The crystalline hull began to glow, but something was wrong. Where before their technology had seemed flawless, now imperfections became visible, weak points and flaws that had always been there, hidden from lesser sight. "Target their primary power conduits," Sullivan ordered, her voice steady. "Phoenix, initialize the modified quantum matrix." This time, when the Aegis's weapons fired, they weren't merely reflecting the enemy's power. Each shot carried with it fragments of ancient knowledge, disrupting the very principles upon which Kraxan technology was built. Their crystalline hulls, once seemingly impervious, now shattered like glass. "Multiple enemy ships going dark," Gene reported, struggling to keep the excitement from his voice. "Their entire command and control network is collapsing." But victory was not without cost. The Aegis shuddered as power surges threatened to overwhelm its reinforced systems. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship as the ancient code pushed their technology to its absolute limits. "Commander," Hassan's voice was strained, "the core is approaching critical levels. We need to power down the matrix or risk a complete system failure." Sullivan stood from her chair, watching as the mighty Kraxan fleet fell into disarray. "Not yet. Phoenix, divert all non-essential power to the quantum systems. Lieutenant Bennett, prepare to receive another data burst from the artifacts." The space around the Aegis seemed to ripple as hidden dimensions folded and unfolded. The ancient code had unlocked something fundamental about the nature of reality itself, showing humanity a truth that the Kraxan had spent eons trying to suppress. "Commander," Volkov called out, his voice filled with awe, "the artifacts are revealing coordinates. Hundreds of them, scattered throughout the galaxy. Places where the architects left their knowledge, their technology. Places the Kraxan couldn't find," Zara added, "because they never understood the full scope of what they were destroying. They only saw the pieces, never the whole picture." Sullivan watched as the last Kraxan ships fled, their once perfect formation now a scattered retreat. But she felt no triumph, only a growing awareness of the responsibility that had been thrust upon them. Humanity hadn't just inherited a weapon, they had been chosen as the next guardians of knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. Tell them we're going to need more ships. The war isn't over, it's just begun." And this time, we're fighting for more than just survival. As the Aegis hung in the void, its systems pulsing with ancient power, the crew realized they stood at a turning point in human history. The Kraxan had underestimated them for the last time, but the real challenge lay ahead, proving worthy of the legacy they had just inherited. The Aegis drifted in the shadow of Mars, its hull bearing the scars of recent battles. Inside the ship's main laboratory, holograms danced with fragments of the Architect's code, each revelation bringing humanity closer to understanding their cosmic inheritance, and the price it carried. "These readings can't be right," Dr. Volkov muttered, his weathered face illuminated by cascading data streams. "The power requirements for a full network activation would exceed anything we've ever generated." Zara Bennett stood beside him, her dark eyes reflecting the shifting patterns. "Unless..." She hesitated, then pulled up a new simulation. "Unless we're not meant to power it alone." On the bridge, Commander Sullivan received the latest reports from Earth. The Kraxan defeat had bought them time, but scattered distress signals suggested the enemy was regrouping, adopting new tactics. More disturbing were the reports of strange energy signatures appearing near other human colonies, signatures that matched the Architect's technology. "They're searching," Gene observed from his station. "The Kraxan know we've unlocked something significant. They're trying to find other artifacts before we do." Sullivan's response was interrupted by a sudden alert from Phoenix. "Warning, detecting quantum resonance cascade. Source, the Mars excavation site." Below the red planet's surface, in the ancient chambers where the first artifacts had been discovered, something was awakening. The Aegis's enhanced sensors painted a picture of energies swirling and coalescing, forming patterns that mirrored the ship's modified systems. "Commander," Hassan's voice crackled through the comm, "the quantum matrix is responding to the signal. It's like they're calling to each other." Sullivan straightened in her chair. "Dr. Volkov, what are we looking at?" The scientist's reply was filled with wonder and trepidation. "A network node, Commander. One of many the Architects left behind. They're not just data storage sites, they're power sources, meant to work in concert. And we've just triggered this one," Zara added. "But the energy output, it's more than we ever imagined. If the Kraxan detect this..." Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Jin's warning cut through the discussion. "Kraxan signatures, but different configurations than we've seen before. They're not alone." The tactical display revealed the truth. Alongside the crystalline ships of the Kraxan came vessels of organic design, moving with uncanny precision. The enemy had found allies, other races who feared what humanity might unleash. "They're broadcasting," Tanaka reported. "All frequencies, all languages they know." A chorus of voices filled the bridge, some mechanical, others distinctly organic. "Humans of Earth, you meddle with forces beyond your comprehension. The Architect's legacy brings only destruction. Surrender the artifacts, or we will be forced to sterilize your entire system." Sullivan's jaw tightened. "How long until the Mars node fully activates?" 30 minutes, Volkov replied. "But Commander, there's something else. The code, it's showing us what the Architects were building. Why the Kraxan and their allies fear it so much." On the main screen, a new pattern emerged. The network nodes weren't just power sources, they were pieces of a vast machine, scattered across the galaxy. A machine designed to reshape reality itself, to give younger races the power to challenge the established order of the cosmos. "They're not afraid of us using the artifacts as weapons," Zara realized. "They're afraid of us finishing what the Architects started." The enemy fleet moved to surround Mars, their weapons charged. They had learned from previous defeats, this time, they wouldn't underestimate humanity's potential. "Options?" Sullivan demanded. Hassan spoke up first. "We could try to shut down the node, power down our systems. Show them we're not a threat. And give up everything we've learned." Jean countered. "Everything we could become." Sullivan watched the tactical display, noting how the enemy ships positioned themselves. Their new allies brought technologies they'd never encountered, but the architect's gift had taught them to see patterns, to understand the flow of battle in ways their enemies couldn't comprehend. "Dr. Volkov," she said finally, "you said the network was meant to work in concert. What happens if we link the Aegis directly to the Mars node? Channel its power through our modified systems?" The scientist's sharp intake of breath was answer enough. Theoretically, the power transfer would be unprecedented. We might be able to activate other nodes, create a cascade effect. But the strain on the ship, on the crew. "We'll die anyway if we do nothing," Sullivan stated flatly. "Lieutenant Bennett, begin power transfer sequences. Chief Hassan, divert all non-essential systems to structural integrity. Phoenix, plot a course directly over the excavation site." As the Aegis moved into position, the enemy fleet opened fire. But their weapons seemed to pass through space strangely, as if reality itself was beginning to bend around the awakening node. "Commander," Zara called out, her voice tight with discovery, "the code is showing something new. The architects, they weren't just leaving us technology. They were leaving us a choice." "What kind of choice?" Sullivan demanded, as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "A choice between remaining as we are, or becoming something more. The network, it's not just a weapon or a power source. It's an evolution engine. The Kraxan and their allies, they're not trying to stop us from using it. They're trying to stop us from transforming humanity itself." The implications hung heavy in the air as the Mars node pulsed with increasing power. The Aegis's systems hummed in harmony with the ancient machine, ready to embrace whatever change was coming. In that moment, Sullivan realized that every previous battle, every victory and loss, had led to this decision. "All hands," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the ship, "prepare for full power transfer. Whatever happens next, remember, we choose our own path. Not the Kraxan, not their allies, not even the architects themselves. This is humanity's moment to decide its own destiny." As the node's energy began to flow into the ship's systems, the boundary between technology and consciousness began to blur. The true price of tomorrow was about to be paid, and the galaxy would never be the same. Time seemed to slow as the architect's energy coursed through the Aegis. The ship's hull gleamed with impossible colors as ancient power merged with human ingenuity, transforming metal and flesh alike. Commander Sullivan felt it in her bones, the change they had chosen, the evolution they had embraced. "Power levels exceeding all known parameters," Phoenix announced, its voice taking on new harmonics, becoming something more than artificial. "Crew neural patterns synchronizing with ship systems. The transformation is beginning." The enemy fleet's weapons fire seemed to freeze in space, caught in the ripples of distorted reality emanating from the Mars node. Through the Aegis's enhanced sensors, the crew watched as quantum possibilities bloomed like flowers in spring, each choice creating new branches of potential. "Their allies are retreating," Gene reported, his consciousness now partly merged with the ship's tactical systems. "The organic ships, they recognize what's happening. They've seen this before, in their own histories." Dr. Volkov's hands moved across controls that responded to thought as much as touch. "The architects didn't vanish," he breathed, understanding flooding his enhanced mind. "They didn't die out or fall to the Kraxan. They evolved. Transformed themselves into something beyond physical form. And now they're offering us the same choice," Zara added, her awareness expanding through the ship's systems. "The network wasn't a weapon, it was an invitation. A gift to any species brave enough to take the next step." The Kraxan ships pressed their attack with increasing desperation, their crystalline weapons shattering against the quantum fields surrounding the Aegis. Their transmissions had devolved into chaos. "Stop them. The cycle cannot repeat. The boundaries must be maintained." Sullivan stood on her bridge, watching as reality rippled around her ship. The crew's consciousness had begun to merge, not just with each other but with the vessel itself. The distinction between organic and mechanical, between individual and collective, was blurring. "Chief Hassan," she called out, feeling his response more than hearing it, "status of the power transfer?" "We're beyond anything we could have imagined, Commander," he replied, his voice resonating through the ship's very structure. "The node's energy, it's not just changing the ship. It's changing us. All of us." Through their enhanced perception, the crew watched as the Mars node's activation triggered others across the galaxy. Ancient machines, sleeping for millennia, began to awaken. Each one carried the same message, the same offer to species ready to transcend their original forms. The Kraxan, Zara realized, accessing newly unlocked memories within the code, they weren't custodians. They were gatekeepers. Afraid of change, of evolution. They saw what happened to the architects and vowed to prevent it from happening again. Sullivan felt the truth of it in the quantum currents flowing through her ship. The Kraxan, for all their power, were bound by fear, fear of the unknown, fear of transformation, fear of letting go of what they were to become something new. "Commander," Phoenix announced, its consciousness now indistinguishable from the crew's collective awareness, final stage of transformation approaching. The choice must be made. Around them, space itself seemed to hold its breath. The Kraxan fleet hung motionless, their weapons powerless against what humanity was becoming. The organic ships of their allies had withdrawn to safe distances, watching in awe and terror as history repeated itself. Sullivan reached out, not with her hand but with her transformed consciousness, touching the minds of her crew. She felt their agreement, their readiness to take the step that would change humanity forever. "We choose to evolve," she declared, her voice carrying across dimensions. "Not because we must, but because we can. Because exploration, growth, and change are written into our very DNA." The Aegis blazed with light as the transformation reached its peak. Hull plates shifted like living tissue, quantum fields merged with human consciousness, and the boundary between technology and life dissolved completely. In that moment, humanity transcended its original form, becoming something the universe hadn't seen since the architects themselves ascended. The Kraxan fleet fled in disarray, their greatest nightmare realized. Across human space, other ships and colonies began to receive the signal, the invitation to join in the transformation. Earth itself pulsed with newfound energy as dormant nodes awakened, offering humanity's cradle the same choice its children had made among the stars. "It's beautiful," Zara whispered, her consciousness expanding to touch the quantum web that connected all things. "We can see everything. Understand everything." "Not everything," Volkov corrected, his transformed awareness reaching across space and time. "Just enough to know how much more there is to learn, to become." The Aegis hung in space, no longer just a ship but a bridge between what humanity had been and what it could become. The crew's consciousness had expanded beyond physical form, yet retained the curiosity, courage, and determination that had defined their species. "Send word to Earth," Sullivan commanded, though word no longer meant quite what it once had. Tell them that the stars are not our limit. They're our beginning." As the transformed ship moved through space that bent to its will, humanity stepped into a new chapter of existence. The Kraxan had underestimated them for the last time, not understanding that humans didn't just adapt to survive, they adapted to thrive, to grow, to become more than they were. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and humanity, in all its transformed glory, was ready to help write the next chapter in the cosmic story. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as inheritors of the architect's dream, a dream of endless evolution, of infinite possibility, of consciousness unfettered by the bonds of ordinary space and time. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as humanity embraced its new destiny, ready to explore not just the physical universe, but the very boundaries of existence itself.